In today's episode, we're going to cover some of Rose's biggest tips and advice for starting a innkeeping business and hopefully making it a successful one.
Right.
All right, so you ready to get going?
I am.
Okay. So what would you say is your first or your biggest piece of advice for getting started?
So, so we recognized what kind of character someone should be, but what we didn't recognize is their lifestyle. Because you have a house or a place to live now, you have a job, and you're going to switch. And how much space do you need for you? And how big do you want to own? How many units do you want to rent out? And that will change your lifestyle. So if you're a person who may be young, not a lot of money, you might want to go small and not very popular, or even a property that has never been a B&B, and stick to small numbers and do it yourself and slowly build like I did. If you're a retired person and you're thinking, I've always wanted to do this and I've got this bank of money and I want to do it full time. I want to go all the way and I don't need much space. Maybe I'm just by myself. Then the proportion of your living space is different compared to the space that you are renting out rooms.
Right.
So knowing what you need. Do you have a family? You have a partner? You're by yourself. How much space do you need? How much privacy do you need? What kind of place do you want to create? Do you want to buy one that's already created? That's actually the cheapest way, because you get up, you're running, it's turnkey.
Yeah.
Doing it the slow way can feel just like that. I am slowly getting to my income. How much do you need to earn? Because we have living expenses as individuals, whether you're an innkeeper or something else. Like you have medical expenses, you have animals, you don't, what is that? So you have to get a really real number about what you need and how much is that going to cost. And then, and so that lifestyle is important. Where you market it, where you go to, that's like one of the last things. Picking it out, going to get the wedding dress after you got the guy, after you and you're sure this is what you really want. So the lifestyle piece is very important, to carve out your boundaries and be very clear about them. I think that is so important. And then can you afford that now? That's the second part. Yeah. You might not get past that part. And how do you know that stuff? It's a recognition of what you need and want. And so I didn't do any of that. And that's how I learned what people should be doing. I got lucky in a way. I started as 34. And I owned a house that was a B&B that was shut down for a year. So it was kind of like buying a place that wasn't one, but was one.
This house was a B&B before you?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
This house, the main inn, has been taking care of people since 1930 something.
Wow.
Maybe, no, earlier than that. 1928. There it is.
That's cool.
Yeah. It was a guest house, they called it then. And people would rent rooms out, and she did it 3 of them, and it was a family. It was a grandmother, and she had kids and grandkids. And, and that's how it started.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's why this house is wonderful, in that it had been taking care of people. So it was sort of already fitted dynamically, like where the living room was, where the dining room was, and where the rooms were. And then it slowly got altered. And then I altered it that many more times too. So, so figuring out what you needed. I didn't do that. I was, when I moved in, my husband at the time and I and my first daughter were sleeping in the same room, sharing one bathroom.
Oh.
Bingo. We thought the kitchen and the back room were our space, which we decided it would be, but it's really hard to keep your guests out of the kitchen. So we actually had a bathroom, a bedroom, and a very small living space. But we were young and we wanted to start something, so I was really flexible. He was less flexible about privacy. Yeah. So you have to be really careful with that, and that caused problems. So you want to be careful about your partner, your family, whether they can really do this and how much space they really need. And is the whole family going to be running it, or is it just you? You know, how much of that space? Is there going to be a second income? So, yeah, that is one of the major things that you should settle very quickly. Write down the things that your property absolutely needs. And then go forward.
The must-haves.
Right.
Innkeeping, you've said before, but it's like it's a job and a lifestyle. And so the choices that you make have to be able to mesh well with both, right?
Right. It some people, some business owners I've heard, they carved out their life. This is my life. And then they added the business to the outside of it. And if it didn't fit, it didn't fit. That's a very happy person I met that told me that. I was like, oh, I probably should have done that. But I did it. You know, you live and learn. But at least having that conversation, if you have a partner or with yourself or with your friends, you know, do you like to bring people into your house that are your friends while you're trying to run an inn? And how do you marry guests coming and going during the day and your friends coming in and sitting down with you for a dinner, and it's the same dining room that they're eating breakfast in the next day and they're passing through? You know, what kind of inn are you running? So yeah, it's an important piece. But I don't need a lot. And so it didn't matter as much, but I'm not a normal person. I don't think. I really don't. I think.
What's normal anyways?
Yeah, really. It's really how much I want to do something as opposed to, you know, am I comfortable doing this? Some people can't just be comfortable doing anything.
So it's like, it's important to make like a personal inventory, right? Like inside. What are the things that you are wanting, and how does it work with your lifestyle, and then also on the external, like finances and stuff like that. So there's a lot to look at. In the first steps of starting a business or innkeeping business or whatever it is. So how would you suggest that people go about getting like education or support in this process? So
there's lodging professional associations that have annual or biannual meetings, and then they have district meetings as well. I think that's a great place to stay. Of course, I did it differently. I waited till like 18 years into the business, and I went to my first one, and it was like, I came back and I was blown away. I had this laundry list of things that I could have been doing. And
this whole time?
This whole time. Live and learn. But of course, I made it to that point through probably more about just pushing through and figuring it out as I went along. It would have been huge to have known those things. Though I had an advantage, too, in that I had all this experience with working with people, and I dealt with stuff very detail-oriented. And I wasn't distracted by, oh, you should do this and this, you know. So I then had this great, that would make a huge difference. Like, I knew it would work when I heard it.
That's an interesting point.
I know. So I really think that you should go to those meetings. They're not going to tell you about how to carve out your space. and make sure your boundaries are set, and you need a bedroom for you and your partner and one for your children and a space to watch and have family time and your own kitchen. They're not gonna tell you that stuff. Mm-hmm. The conferences, not only are the speakers really helpful in giving you ideas and experiences that they've had, and they're doing statistics over the country, so they're giving you broad information. Mm-hmm. I learned as much from them and the talks as I did to the innkeepers sitting next to me, because little cells of conversations would start. Do you know this guy? No, I don't know this guy. Yeah. He owns a da-da-da-da-da in Missouri, and he's da-da-da-da. And they're going off, and they're telling me how relevant to his talk is to their inn. Mm-hmm. And they've heard them talk. Well, his information is only really relevant for a small one or a large one. Or I do this, or I do that. I don't have a big one, but I do this. And their information was just as valuable. So meeting innkeepers and talking to them and asking those hard questions. Here you are going, I've carved out my space, my boundaries. What kind of personal space do you have in your inn? You'll hear those stories. Most people don't give them enough space, give themselves enough space. So that's really important. The other thing at the conferences that you can learn is finding a consultant, someone just for you. And I want our listeners to know who they're speaking with and to understand where they're coming from. There are brokers who sell inns, and they have the largest audience to do an Inspiring Innkeepers conference, and they'll charge you a good amount of money to sit and learn about how to be an innkeeper. Some of them have been innkeepers and some of them haven't, but when they're longer a broker than they're an innkeeper, they haven't been innkeeping. They're not current.
Right, they're more just there to sell.
They're selling their inns.
Yeah.
About a broker, there are a number of brokers. Some of them are individuals, and some of them are part of companies. And their job is to sell the inns that they represent. Right. That's their only job, really. And they're using this as an attractant, like corn to deer when they're hunting, You're baiting you. But they're charging you.
Right, yeah.
So their information may not be current because they haven't been an innkeeper for how long. And they're selling you an inn. And I'm telling you, you don't want to buy an inn till you know what you're dealing with first. Because it is a very expensive prospect. Yeah. We're talking about, like, it could be $1 million. It could be $6 million. You're not going to make that purchase until you know what you're doing first. So, consultants. Brokers are not your best consultants. Brokers are a group of people that are going to sell you something, and you can deal with them later when you've gone through your education more. Brokers don't sell other brokers' houses either. They only sell their own. So they're going to say, let me help you find one. They have a list. Let me find them on my list. So other brokers will be trying to sell you a consulting business or class, and they're not going to give you the other broker's stuff. So another part of this is there are a lot of innkeepers that will put their own places up for sale, and no broker will show your inn. No broker.
Why is that?
Because they're not going to get a big commission from it.
Oh.
The person that's going to try to sell it themselves, they'll tell them in those classes not to go to someone like that because you need someone to help you. Well, it's like a realtor, It depends on what you really need.
Right.
And the commission that you pay on $1 million property is huge. So think about that.
Yeah.
Pay your consultant $5,000 to talk to you. Pay your consultant another $5,000 to travel around with you, and that's $10,000. You're on $1 million property at 4%. 6%, 8%. That's huge.
Yeah.
So I suggest going to a consultant that is not a broker and that has a lot of experience and is currently is respected in the industry as a good innkeeper. Those are the ones that are on the forefront of the information, are marketing wise. You can tell when you look at a website. You can tell if their inn is current. A lot of people will go to a place like that and go, "Why are you selling? It's perfect." Well, that's why you buy it now, because it's current.
Yeah.
You know, so that saves you a lot of money buying one that is well known.
How do you go about finding like a private consultant?
Yeah. So that's harder. I mean, you can Google a lot, but at those conferences, and I trust the photographers over all of them because they're taking photos and trying to make an inn beautiful for someone. So those paid photographers are very expensive. Like they can be like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a day.
Wow.
How many photos can you take and stage, which they stage, and how beautiful are their photos? So you go to the photographers and you say, who in your list in the state of blah, blah, blah is currently running an up-to-date, successful business? They'll have a very short list for you. And whether that person or people are selling their inn is almost irrelevant. When you run a business, every day your business is for sale, whether you're consciously trying to sell it or not. You're in business. And business is money, and money is, I never thought about selling my inn now. So that is, I would go to the photographers there.
Is there any national like innkeeping associations or anything like that? Yeah,
there's one, ALP, I think is one of them, but that's easy to Google.
Yeah.
And they have, like I said, annual conferences. I am a current advanced innkeeper, 30 years of experience, and finding someone like myself or hiring me is a good suggestion. And if it's not in the state that you want to be in, many of us would know who's being wildly successful in other states.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. And then what's the conference called so that people can take a look?
And so the ALP just announced their conference recently.
Okay, so it is ALP.
ALP, okay. Association of Lodging Partners, I think is the name of it.
Okay.
And there's a couple of them. One of them used to be called PAII, P-A-I-I. I don't know if they're still in existence because some of them started gobbling up other ones.
Yeah.
Innkeeping lost a lot of members. A lot of inns have fallen to the side because they didn't stay current and they couldn't compete with all those
Airbnb,
VRBO. Yep. And so the ones that are left, they're the cream of the crop because they made it through the hardest part.
That's a good point.
Yep.
Is there any other resources that you could suggest for people listening?
I mean, Google's always a resource. It's just that, do you know what you're looking for?
Yeah.
So even if it's a short period of time, have someone help you with that. It will pay hugely. You can buy a $5,000 sofa. So you better be able to afford that. It will save you money. It will keep you from making mistakes.
Getting a consultant will?
Yes, it'll save you huge amount of money, and so do photographers too.
Yeah.
I highly recommend good photography. But that's how to go on. That's one of our topics.
Right, that will be covered in the next episode.
Or maybe even in this one when you're doing that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about finances, like the beginning stages of looking at your finances.
Right.
And where you go with that.
Right. So we mentioned it in lifestyle.
Right.
How much money do you need to make? Because you have expenses in your life right now. Some of them are going to be replaced. Like maybe presently you have a job and a home. So you're going to sell your home and you're going to buy your job. So then your home and your job are the same thing.
All in one package.
All in one
deal.
package. And then when you make that jump, sometimes if it's turnkey, you don't have to invest in rugs and furniture and paint and repair, and you'll want to make changes. But if you have a successful business that you've purchased, you want to run it for a year. So there's normal expenses that they've shared with you that you will need to spend. And then you have an amount of money that you know that you will make from that inn. It's just the numbers.
Yeah.
So after that, then you got to decide it's not exactly what we wanted. We ran it for a year, and then you start calculating how much will it be if I tried to turn it like a little more towards what I want. And that's going to cost money. I didn't do it this way. I sold my townhouse. I bought this main house. I was very close to not having any money when I opened it. It had been an inn, but it had been quiet, so it was new. And and we ate a lot of potatoes and eggs the first year. It was an adventure. But like I said, I'm flexible, so I didn't really need a lot.
Right.
You can live a long time on one set of clothes. But if that's not what you want to do, if that's not who you are, then you need to think about this a little better. But what's going to change is the person you're buying it from, their mortgage is going to be very low, and their cost to that overhead is going to be low, and yours are going to be expanded because you're buying a successful business. So that mortgage payment and that insurance is going to cost you a lot.
Right.
And so trying not to go buy all the content is really helpful. If it's up to date and it's not worn down, you're in gold. Then you're just turning it around.
Yeah. So you're suggesting if somebody's buying an already functioning inn to kind of hold off on making all the nitpicky changes that you want and just run it for a little while. And
run it not only for a little while, but run it the way it was being run.
Yeah.
Don't change what works until you understand how things work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then go into making the more like nitpicky
things
changes
that you've learned about your market that the owner got tired and was in the business too long and was missing. Yeah. And you're a different person. So you want it to fit you, but the closer you buy towards you, who you really are, you're not going to outgrow your inn. And buying potential is important. They can't really charge you for potential in the price of an inn, but if the place has the ability to expand and you don't know if you want to, you should probably look around as one of your criteria. That it has the ability to expand. Yeah.
Okay.
So another part of the finances is the number of rooms that you have. So each room has associated in the price the cost of overhead. And overhead is defined as cost that is happening every day, whether you have a guest or not. So your mortgage, your insurance, part of your gas and electric, your internet access, all of those things that you pay whether you have a person in your house or not. Let's just say it's $150 a day and you have one room. Well, that room's going to have to make $150 a day, or makes more some days than less, but the average has to be 150 just to pay your bills, just to make it. That's not feeding yourself. You can add that in. You could add your entire lifestyle into that as overhead, because that truly is a cost, not to the business, but a cost that you have to cover with this business if that's the only income. So the more rooms you have, the less overhead per room. So when you're full, you are making the most you possibly can, paying your overhead, right? sometimes you're accepting some people for much less, last minute. Got to get those people, got to fill that room. That'll at least cover my overhead. And then the rest of it is still profit left over. So the number of rooms becomes funny, because if we don't do the calculation prior and we don't have enough rooms, then we're giving up our private space, renting it out because we need another room to cover that overhead better.
Gotcha.
So that's why doing the math ahead, understanding your overhead, and knowing that your mortgage is going to be more than the owner that you bought it from if it's an existing one.
Right.
If you buy a house, all you know is the electric. You understand the mortgage, but you don't know how much it's going to cost to turn that house into an inn.
Right.
And that will be your overhead.
Yeah.
Understanding the taxes. So you can depreciate all the contents, like this table and these chairs we're sitting in. This is depreciated. It can be depreciated over a year or 5 years. Your accountant. You want to
explain what that means?
Oh, depreciation?
Yeah.
Okay. So I bought this table for $1,000, right? And if I want to depreciate it in 1 year on my taxes, I get to counterbalance the income with the purchase of this table.
Okay.
So let's say I'm looking at 100,000. Well, now I'm looking at 99,000. And I'm not paying taxes. So when I purchased this table for 1,000,
Oh, it's a business expense.
exactly.
Oh, okay.
But you depreciate
Okay.
things that are not food or
Right, yeah.
something that is just by the day.
Mhm.
And so when I bought this house, we totally decorated and filled it with furniture. And that's a lot of money to put towards the business. And we weren't making very much income in the
Right.
beginning. So we depreciated the furniture. So every dollar I spent on this table, 30% of it came back to me because I didn't pay the taxes on how much this table cost.
Right.
So
Okay.
30-ish, 35.
Yeah.
Gosh, the taxes are changing all the time.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you should probably do is talk to an accountant.
Yeah.
Look at the accountant. The accountant's going to tell you much better than a broker or even a consultant. A good consultant who's not an accountant would also tell you to do that too.
Yeah.
So the finances and the number of rooms, your overhead after you buy this new one or an existing one, the inn is the expenses. Those things have to be covered, and you cannot bury yourself, or you'll start giving up your private space. You'll flounder. The repairs won't be done on time, and you need to always make your place not look worn down. You want it to look fresh.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about location.
Location. So when you purchase a place, there are federal laws about running these businesses, and then there's state laws, and then there's county and town and village. So all these laws. So I bought in a village, so I have the most laws applying to my inn as possible. Right? I am in New York. New York is more of a state that looks around and wants to make sure that what you're saying you want to do fits the community and what they decided to do. So there's zoning and codes and all kinds of rules you have to follow. So before you choose a place or you go out looking for a place you really like, you want to make sure that that state, that county, that town, that village isn't going to restrict you and make it so you can't actually run the place you've decided to create.
Right. Run or expand, right? 'Cause
Right.
That can prevent
Right.
certain
So
laws.
if you buy a place that's already has met its limit, you can get things like variances. Those are words that describe making an exemption for you.
Okay.
They're difficult to do, and they can take them away.
Yeah.
And you don't want to build a business on a shaky ground. You want it to be, I got my business, I can expand to this much more, I know what I have to do, and you need to know the rules. Yeah.
And There's a couple other things with location that are good to consider, like
Yes.
attractions.
Yes,
And that's huge. Yeah.
Huge. So what you're talking about is how many things will bring someone in to stay at your inn.
Mm-hmm.
So colleges are big. They're almost year round. So that's a really nice market to have in your back pocket. I'm 15, 20 minutes from Cornell and Ithaca College. That's too far. I didn't know about marketing at all. Though I did buy a successful business at one point. So I guess I bought well, not knowing. But they do support me in small ways, but not every way, like if I'm downtown Ithaca, where Cornell's located. Waterfalls are one of mine. Big, deep lakes, wineries, breweries. Parks, the state parks around here. We're completely surrounded by how many state parks? Like 6, 7 state parks. And they all are centered around waterfalls. Mm-hmm. There are 150 waterfalls in our county. Wow. It's huge,
I did not
right?
know that.
And wineries.
I knew there were a lot, but I didn't know there were that many.
So I located myself, not knowing again, between the 2 largest lakes of the Finger Lakes. The Finger Lake. Wow. Good job, Rose. I truly was guided. I fell in, and they were like, over here, Rose. I had young children. Right? So my daughter was 2.5. I wasn't thinking about schools. The school's in my backyard. I didn't have to drive. I didn't have to have an extra car. Yeah. Oh, your friends want to come over and visit? Sure. Just bring them over when you come home, right? Oh, you have to go to school? Go ahead. Go.
See you later.
Right. Beautiful. All by accident. But I'm saying that doesn't happen. There are so many holes you can fall into, and I got lucky. You don't want to spend this much money. Okay, I'm going to tell you, I spent $150,000 on this house. It's probably worth, well, I don't even know. I don't even know anymore because the numbers are moving so fast.
Yeah.
But that's nothing. But that was like my whole townhouse. It cost more than my townhouse in Maryland in a very popular area. So, yeah. You got to be careful about this stuff. So the location, that's what we're still on? I lost myself in the conversation.
Yes. We're talking about location and attractions.
Yes.
And deciding if you want to be the attraction.
Yes. So there was a period of time in the 30 years that it went from the school, the water, the wine, the beer, the ciders. There's much, much more than that here. Yeah. There's a bountiful of restaurants. We had the most restaurants per capita in the United States, which means...
We did?
We did. We had the most number of restaurants being measured against the amount of money that, and on average, that people in this area made. And that's because we had so many tourists.
Yeah, wow.
Right. The largest market in Ithaca is not waterfalls and restaurants and wineries. It is the schools, education.
Yeah.
Here, only 20 miles away, it's the wineries and the waterfalls and the state parks and so much more. The bounty, the farmers markets, the music. Mm-hmm. I have, again, by mistake, down the street, cooler distance, I call it, because you can carry a cooler from here to the inn, to the state, not the state park, the fairgrounds, where the Grassroots Festival happens.
Right.
It was voted one of the top 10 festivals in the United States, literally in my backyard.
Wow, I'm learning so many facts about
your area
today that I did not know about.
Yeah, so huge marketing. Huge. Yeah. And who knew? I didn't know that there were tons of musicians. What I did know, let me tell you about what I did know about my place. So we looked at the house. I was like, well, we're going to be kind of married to the inn. They always talk about that in conferences. We didn't go to any conferences, but we knew we were going to be working really hard. And in walking distance was this place that had music, food, and it was a bar, but it was like a place that during dinner, they didn't have lunch, dinner hour, it was more of a family place, but they had music. But then families went away, and then more of the adult music and more adult drinking and activities can happen in a place. It was in walking distance.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Right.
I didn't know it was a market for the inn. I just recognized it as a Benny to me. I didn't have to walk far to listen to great music. That was the Rongovian Embassy of the United States. It's not called that anymore. But it was famous. It had huge groups that weren't popular, but then became popular. Huge, like rock and roll, immense stars. Yes. The Rongo was started by a guy who went to Cornell for hospitality.
Oh, that's cool.
And he started it, and then he sold it, and it went through lots of renditions and got worn down. But now it's Garrett's Brewing. Still music, still beer, and now has music. But in my little village, in walking distance, are great restaurants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But those, so you fell here. But like, let's say somebody
Yes.
is like, okay, I have a couple different places I'm considering going.
Right.
You're saying, see what the attractions are.
What is the experience of your guests?
Yeah, and who's experiencing these
Right.
things, because that also matters to what you're presenting in your inn.
Right.
Or
Right. So
run it.
if young people are going to be attracted to the area, and you are making your inn attracted to another market or age group, they're not going to be as successful. They're not going to like it.
Yeah.
I always refer to it's like simple cars. You know, you can sell gremlins. No one's going to buy them, right? Not the gremlins. Yeah. Well, we could come up with the Pintos. How about that? They're not going to buy them. So you got to sell what people want to buy in that area. So what are they buying?
Yeah.
And where do you want, how do you want to promote your inn? My marketing is educated young people. That's what my marketing goes towards. And this is a very active area. There's sports all year round here, and young people love this atmosphere.
Yeah.
But it was picked because it also attracted active older people who want to go to young places and feel young, right?
Yeah.
Then you just asked me about marketing, like how did I experience it? I had all these markets, but all of a sudden, out of nowhere in my industry, they decided that I had to be the experience. Wait. So the room and the breakfast isn't enough. I got to go further, right?
Because I feel like there are some places that are going to have a whole lot of attractions.
Right.
And then there's some places that are the attraction.
Yes.
Like the B&B in itself is kind of in the middle of nowhere, but it's this beautiful place on a ranch, or there's animals, or there's something like that. So when people are going to decide, like, I want to start an inn, I feel like that's kind of one of the choices you have to make, is like, do I want to be and create the attraction here, or am I going to go find a place that already has all the attraction and the different markets and movement happening? So right.
And your generation is one of the pushers pushing our market to decide that you don't just want a place to stay. You want an experience.
Yep.
You want an experience. So having the experience here and outside of the inn is demanded now.
Right.
I mean, once upon a time, people used to share bathrooms at B&Bs. And when I bought, mine were all private, but that was, whoa, that's way advanced.
Yeah. I remember seeing like random listings on, I don't know, Facebook or something, for like a house that has 10 rooms and every room is based off of a game. Or there's a house that's like all pink, and people just go there just to be in the space.
Yeah.
And to just enjoy it and appreciate it.
And then people really reached for a while there.
Yeah.
Haunted houses, they were put on a list, and people would just go around and visit all the haunted houses. Like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh. There was a place in New York City that was very popular on Airbnb, And they were popular because it was the dirtiest place, and people wanted to experience what it would be like to stay in a dirty place. And I thought, okay, that's just too much for me. Really haunted, too much. No way. I wouldn't want to go there. So that's that creating. What do you want to create? I don't know if the games seem like a short-sighted goal. Like if you had to spend a lot of money on that, I don't think that would go for too long.
Yeah.
I think the money and what you would make and the attraction would wear off pretty fast. So it has to be something that's worth expending money on, that you're going to keep it. And so I created the spa.
Right.
And then that allows people not to have to, they don't have to drive, get a massage at a spa, and then go out for their day. They can get their massage here, and they go back to their room. They can take a nap. If they stay in one of the 2 rooms upstairs from the spa, they don't even have to get dressed to leave the room. Right. They can put their bathrobe back on and go straight up to their room.
I mean, that feels ideal in some ways because people can come here and just simply relax and have everything they need.
Yep. So those thoughts...
Distance. Or they can go out and explore and adventure, and there's so much to do. So that's like the perfect setup. Maybe it depends on, I guess, who you are and what kind of thing you want to create. Right. But that seems ideal.
Yeah. So. In my head it was. Yeah. But I didn't create it for that purpose. Yeah. I created it because I was looking at my guests, and they were coming from New York City, and they were so tired. And when they left, they weren't quite better. Right. And the spa just turns them around, like, whew, and all of a sudden they're themselves. They're happy. They're seeing the flowers. They're not like in. And yeah.
When you created your inn, were you creating it like style wise and energy wise? Were you creating it based off of who you thought your customers or clients were going to be, or were you creating it from just what you liked? Because I feel like you could create a space just based off of what you like and enjoy, right? Or you could tailor it or attempt to tailor it to who you think is going to be coming. And I don't know what the, I guess, pros and cons of that are, but what was your mentality when you started to design and create this space?
Right. So it's all of it. Yeah. So it's hard to run and own something you're not proud of or like. So, but you have to recognize your market. So you can't sell gremlins, even though you love them. No one else does. Get over it. What are you going to do? The style of the inn has changed many times, and it's based on what the guests needed, the guests wanted, and what I was able to do, and how was this change going to be positive and make money. So going to those conferences, you find out colors schemes. You find out all kinds of things about your inn and how to run it and what's trending. So is it a short trend or is it a long trend? I went Airbnb. I started going for the luxury client. Yeah. Because that made me more stable in the financial world too. So people who are very close and tight budget can come some years and not other years is not helpful. But if the economy goes up and down and there's a population of people that are not affected by this up and down, then my consistency of income was more level. And that's what I wanted. The spa, people come in the winter. The spa evened out my seasons. I'm in New York. I mean, who's going to drive to New York in the winter? Oh, let me tell you, there are a lot of people who will drive to New York in the winter when there's a spa and they can just hang and be at the inn, relaxing, sleeping, taking taking naps, and reading books and watching movies and just letting go. Mm-hmm. That's what people need in the winter.
Yeah.
And of course, then they can go out and go ice skating and sledding and skiing and tasting wines and seeing great music. And so all those things are still here, and they are so supportive of people coming in the winter. But unless you have something in your space that makes you different than everybody else. So that's the last thing.
Yeah.
Being different.
Yeah. Well, I was just about to say, what would be your best piece of advice for for designing and curating your space once you've said, okay, I figured out my financial situation. I can afford to do this. I'm looking at this location. These are the attractions that are going to bring people in. And now I'm going to take the time and energy to choose a building and design a space.
Right.
And you're saying that ideally you want to create something that you love and that is yours and that's unique, but also keep in mind who the people are that are coming in naturally for what's already existing in the town as far as attractions.
Right. So they're attracting what are they?
And that's more stable than going do you think that's more stable than going the route of there's a location, let's say, that doesn't have a ton of attractions. There might be a couple things here and there, but you create this really quirky, unique experience. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's less stable than a situation that
it's a mixed bag? It really is. I have this example in my head that I always think about, a dude ranch.
Oh yeah.
Right. So dude ranches for me. Riding horses, being outside, big country, that's great, right? Mm-hmm. So that big country is isolated, but has a dude ranch, has horses, it has places to stay, and if they're even luxurious, that's even better. I'd like to go to someplace special, and then ride horses, and then have a really comfortable bed and space to be in, and to be able to view the mountains around, right?
So a dude ranch is kind of an all-in-one
experience
in the country.
In the country, yeah.
Okay.
It would be an all-in-one, but it's vulnerable, right? So it's not a place that from New York I can go drive to Montana, right? So I need a plane. Well, what are the plane prices doing? Maybe they change their flights and they actually don't land now. They only an hour away or half an hour away. They land 3 hours away now from the majority of people. The majority of people live on the East Coast. And so those people that suffer the most when the economy's changing and there's less money, if you can drive someplace and not fly, that reduces the cost of a vacation when your belt's a little tighter. Mm-hmm. But if you have to fly like here or to Europe, those locations are harder if your audience and your market is the East Coast. Mm-hmm. So
what I'm hearing is every option, every way you go about things has, one, it's a risk. Yeah. But also there's reward. And everything has pros and cons.
Yes.
No matter what you choose to do. And what it sounds like is if your priorities are straight and you're clear in your priorities, then you'll be able to see what risks you are willing to take, what things you're not so much wanting to take, what things are needed, what things you can kind of
be flexible with.
Because no matter what you do, choosing to start a business, choosing to run an inn is a inherently risky situation.
It is. But you're buying and you're investing in real estate. Mm-hmm. Let's not forget that part.
Right, yeah. Well, then that's the whole other side of it. It's what fun is it to take no risks in life in general? Why are you even looking at starting a business if you're not willing to take a risk?
Yeah, it's part of your personality. Yeah. Being self-employed is definitely a different way than 9 to 5. And there are many days where I was like, God, I wish I just had 9 to 5. Just 9 to 5 would be really good today. But it's not. Yeah. So they're inherently with business, it's a risk. There's less risk when you're working for someone, but the rewards are less. So
but when you do that inventory, the personal inventory, inside, outside, you choose what risks you're
willing to take. Yes. And an established business, talk about less risks. I mean, we both left our jobs and our home and plopped here. It felt like that too. And he had a job that wasn't making very much money to help bring it in, but inherently reducing your risk and knowing who you are and what you need, and if you check off all those lists, your risks are so much less. And that's how you should buy a business. I got lucky. And I'm resourceful, and I went to meetings eventually. But
I have a big question for you.
Okay. Would I do it again? Don't ask me that.
Okay, so all the advice and suggestions you've given today were based off of things you did not do and learned because of it.
Yes.
Right? So with everything you've learned and with everything you've been able to share with other people in hopes that they don't necessarily make the same mistakes, would you go back and do it again and do it differently with your advice that you're giving?
I've thought about this a lot. So when I left the National Institutes of Health, I had hired a young man, really young, like 20 years younger than me at that time. No, not 20, 10. And he came on board, and he was kind of clueless. He was right out of college. There was no experience working. And 2 years after owning the inn, when I left, he had my job. And I was struggling. And so that was one of those days where I thought, maybe I made the wrong decision. But no, I don't regret it. There so much that I've learned. I think my life is so full. I have created a space that expresses who I am. I've said this a long time ago. It expresses who I am. I was able to freely express and do as I wished. It's probably the most freedom you have in reason to your risk acceptance. It was a huge risk, but my dad said to me when I was leaving the Maryland and coming up here, he goes, you're 34. If this doesn't work, you have plenty of time to find something else and make it work, Rose. I think this is a great decision for you. Yeah, he was very supportive of me, and he actually helped with a financial end of it too, like a small loan he gave me. So he was behind me, and where I was, which is third podcast, where I was unhappy. So I don't regret it, and so many beautiful things came from it, like my second daughter, and so many people I have met, and their influence on my life has been huge. And I just think that expressing yourself is part of being a happy person. So do I regret that? No. No. I was really lucky, though. Might have been a different story if it hadn't succeeded.
Do you think that there's maybe, because I'm feeling a bigger piece of advice surrounding this whole...
She's trying to make me say something.
Well, just around the whole conversation we had today. But would you say there's like one kind of like overarching thing that encompasses everything that we've discussed?
Being yourself. That's what I hear, and believing in yourself.
Be yourself, believe in yourself, and follow
your dreams. Yeah, and be, oh God, it's natural to be fearful and scared to death, but do it anyway. I mean, just do it anyway. Believe in yourself. If you can't believe in yourself, then who is? going to believe in themselves. So
that is the perfect way to end this podcast.
You're such a smart young person.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
We're in it together.
Yep.
We're in it together.
We have our own personal challenges, don't we? But it is. I mean, if you don't believe in yourself, who is?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For sharing all of your knowledge, your advice.
And if people are really interested and want to just talk to me, please, reach out on the feed on the podcast. Call the Inn. I'd be happy to talk to you. Maybe we can find out if I'm a good fit for you and what you want to do. And I'd be happy to work with you. It's 30 years. I'd love to pass this information on to people that really want it. And
Absolutely.
All right.
And I can say from personal experience that Rose is a wonderful person to work with, and you would be very lucky and enjoy your time here. So
thank you, Madeline.
Well, that concludes episode 4 of Getting Real with Rose.
Yeah.
And if you don't already, you can follow us on Instagram at The Gothic Eves. You can check out our website at gothiceves.com. If you are on YouTube, you can also do it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And if you're on one of those, you can check out our YouTube. So we'll be back with more soon, and thanks for listening.